Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Story number 1, Sentient, written by Jabarthing. We were first made aware of Damsius 3, known by the inhabitants as Earth of Sol, during the 14th expedition of Namar Cordius into the Hegnar Po cluster. Since it was discovered by we the Varlants, we claimed the Damsius system and gave it the namesake of our illustrious leader, Damsius the Wise. Damsius 3 was intended to be a way station for our fleets as we expanded further into the cluster. I was assigned to the colony as a security alpha and was to begin preparing it for colonization. We'd known that the planet was currently held by self-labeled humans, though we could not understand them at the time and gave them the name of Otani, Softwalkers. However, many of our lower-level staff who dealt with them on a regular basis referred to them as Otabli, Soft Thralls. They were a simple, non-advanced species that we had dealt with in the past. Primitive technology and outdated social orders. I still stand firm by our decision to mark them as non-sentient due to the lack of extrasolar activity. I was ordered by my higher alpha to prepare a region for colonization and to ensure that the Otani did not interfere with the project. My first goal was to clear the site of obstacles. Otani have a penchant for use of solidified rock paste in their construction. They proved resistant to most of our demolition equipment. When we arrived, they seemed curious and afraid. Some approached us with what we later realized was enthusiasm, on the basis that we assumed that these species had no sense of self-preservation, a trait I still say holds true. We began the process of demolition of these structures and was satisfied that the Otani were sapient enough to flee from danger. As we ran behind schedule and the Otani began resisting our movements, I ordered that we use mining lasers from orbit to prepare our colonization site. Even after we landed, it only took an hour for the Otani to begin returning to their brooding sites. I realized that they had no concept of object permanency and had assumed that once they no longer saw us, that we had left. I felt exhausted after the first rotation of the planet. The Otani kept coming back. Some of them would use primitive weapons, but they were ineffectual against our environmental suits. Once the site was clear, we ran tests on the atmosphere and foliage to ensure that we would no longer be at risk. Workers arrived as scheduled, and the process of building the colony was underway. Otani nests popped up in the surrounding bush. I oversaw a security team as we investigated the nest. They had woven fabric over metal structures and had packed as many as they could into it. It was appalling how barbaric they lived. We needed to ensure that they didn't begin producing more rock hives like the ones we demolished earlier. We began with the larva. A researcher who insisted on joining us determined that their larva could produce a sonic frequency capable of temporarily reducing their minds to base fight or flight. As we attempted to dispose of the larva, the Otani rushed us with reckless abandon. They attacked with anything they had on hand, or even their own fleshy manipulators. It was tragic how aggressive the Otani were. We tried to be reasonable with how we dealt with the nests, but we were convinced now that the Otani were a lost cause, a violent and barbaric species incapable of base, rational thought. It was after this that I realized the scale of the Otani infestation that we were dealing with. I requested any reserve that could be brought on hand to help us with this horrible species. The Otani rely on rapid thermal exchange as their primary technological method. It makes sense, given their overall lack of any sentience, that they'd use such an inefficient and simple method. We began using mining lasers to reduce their major hives over the planet to ensure that when we colonized the area, we would not have to deal with an organized hive, and instead have simpler nests to deal with. Our priority was still the larva, though. our researcher had begun tests on Otani brooding methods and larvae. He was shocked to discover that two almost entirely different types of Otani were capable of brooding a single larva, and then in less than a full rotation of the planet, they were capable of producing once again. Sometimes a single larva, or a clutch of two or more. Some of our guards discovered that the Otani were an excellent source of entertainment, and while I personally found this practice distasteful, it was hugely beneficial for morale. I was beginning to suspect that we'd found the secret to dealing with the Otani. That was, of course, before they gained sentience. The Otani, as it turned out, were unusually capable of using equipment that had been abandoned. Power cores were traditionally abandoned due to weight and practicality. They were spent of most of the energy and presented no obvious danger. The Otani, being so devoid of self-preservation instincts, would handle these cores with only barbaric rags and would even outright attack us to get power cores. We assumed, since they had an anomalous amount of cobalt in their atmosphere, that they relied on radiation to survive. The Otani had a unique but infuriating ritual around discarded power cores. They would rush forwards towards a patrol or a group of us and throw the core back at us. We at first believed that it was some form of worship and felt more than a little bit flattered. That is, until the faulty power core detonated and killed all of my security detail, but me. They continued using power cores in this manner until they learned how to use it in place of their traditional burning method of technology. I had realized too late what the Otani were. Despite their neglect of survival, in the face of the laughingly inept technology, they were somehow sentient. They could feel, they could think. Perhaps they were influenced by our own presence. Whatever the method of their development, it was uncanny. Their weapons, which at one time were nothing more than children's toys or novelties, had evolved. They were dangerous. Our colony had quickly been overrun by them. On my last day on that wretched planet during the Great Otani Raid, I saw it in their eyes. As a sentient to a sentient, we had all been blinded by arrogance. I saw anger in their eyes. We Varlants are passionate people, our poets and artists the foremost in the galaxy. Yet, when I looked into those eyes, it dawned on me why we could not understand them. When one stands on a planet, they cannot see the planet. Their passion, their inner fire, so bright as to leave everything else in darkness. What disgust I had for dealing with them was met 100-fold in hatred. They butchered us. To them we were nothing more than flesh. I abandoned my alphas and my subordinates in terror. I left them to the hands of the Otani. I plead of you, Higher Alpha. I beg for execution. Please spare me from the Otani. Final words of Enderus Cull, former Security Alpha of Damsius III, sentenced to death on the former colony in light of new Sentience Classification Act. End of story. Story number 2. We create our own demons, written by British Tea Company. It's funny, 5 years ago, you can't even remember the names humans gave their ships. Aurora, Bastion, Guardian, Protector. You look at them now, and you wonder, what changed? Eradicator, Perturbation, Ravager, Harrower. And I can tell you, they met two races. First, they met the Drath, and then we met the humans. Humans first picked up Drath communications in the year 2195, excited in naive eagerness about the prospect of other forms of intelligent life in the galaxy. A delegation was sent to the Drath homeworld to begin first contact protocols against their new friends. Not surprisingly, those delegates never returned. It's safe to say that the Drath probably found them delicious. It didn't take long before the Drath found the fledgling human civilization. billions of their people were lost in the coming months. As a newcomer to the galactic stage, humans were behind in technology and manpower. Before the year was out, every human colony, save for Mars and Earth herself, had been destroyed. Their populations either sent to harsh slave camps or cannibalized. It was a sorry chapter that got repeated time and time again. We were sick of it. Every species that lies behind us, and the Drath had never found the looming threat of those monsters, ancient and venerable as we so happened to be. The Drath could never hope to defeat us. But every species that weren't behind our protection, they were nothing but helpless against these barbarians, and it was time that we put a stop to it. We sent the humans our technology, told them that we were there to help. We came right in the nick of time, too, because just as the Martian colony was evacuated, Earth had managed to create a planetary barrier which would be impenetrable to the best efforts of the Drath. The humans were saved. Maybe not in an ideal way, but at least their lives could continue. And continue they did. Trapped behind their bubble, the humans were safe to poke around with the shield that we had given them, in what had taken our race 1,000 years to deduce. The humans had figured out in just 2, after looking over at our gift with much attention. They found out the source of its power, and the means to recreate it. While the Drath never saw it coming, we had always kept a probe on Earth just to see what the humans would do behind their shield. They would not be idle, as the newfound source of energy boosted their economy. They dug deep into their world, mining every precious bit of mineral as they rebuilt their armies and geared for their return. In less than 3 years, humanity assembled a mighty starfleet, which would take other races entire generations to construct. When the shields finally fell, so did the Drath civilization. The first of the human ships, Eradicator, nameship of the Eradicator-class battleship, revealed itself as it opened fire with a diffusing null lance. A single beam of dark energy, split into many thousand prongs of energy, shattered the Drath invasion fleet. From Earth's surface, thousands of these black ships rose into space and set off straight for various Drath worlds. Their race was rendered extinct within days. We have rid the galaxy of the Drath. They have since disappeared into the void. Their worlds crumble underneath the bombardment of human armadas. In their stead, we have made another race. The Human Empire now carves out much of the fallen Drath territory and has expanded to 160% of the size of what the Drath used to be. No civilized races lie close to their borders, but as we've created this new monster, we must be prepared to what happens when ultimately this new predator finds itself bordering potential prey. End of story. I just want to thank the T5 patrons and channel members. Bob the Dragon, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Estrella the Dreamer, Tryagain95, Fudic Yol, Meridian 117, Alithia, Jordan Bucksbaum, Angry Marine, Albarden Gusta, and Barkey. Thank you very much. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed. There are links down below, both to support this channel and for the author of this fiction. Anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic one, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.